High vibes, star pupils. I'm your host, friend, and life coach, Mrs.Divine Awakening. One of our main concerns we have as homeschool instructors is that the public school's agenda promotes assimilation and threatens the individuality of our children. Yet, many Black parenting styles are authoritative in nature, thus giving less of a voice to our children. Today we are exploring the relationship between the individual and society because the Black homeschool experience can outcast a child from understanding their own individuality. We've all heard the argument before that homeschoolers aren't going to know how to be in the real world. The truth is that many of us live and work within society. The truth is that our children interact with public school children, and some will even end up in the public school system themselves. I believe that in order to preserve the true individuality of our children, we must establish a balance between the individual and society. Shifting the focus to the individual and society allows for us to reflect with a more open mind on how we promote or discourage our children from embracing their own individuality within their homeschool environment. As a homeschool mom of 5 with 4 years of homeschool instruction under my belt, I graduated with a major in sociology and learned how to observe the effects of society over the people and how its influence changed the dynamics of group behavior. I worked as a qualified intellectual disabilities professional with persons with developmental disabilities, teaching and integrating them into society. I also worked as an Illinois State human case worker and witnessed how the environment influenced behavioral patterns of people. Eventually, I became certified as a professional life coach and started my own business where I can use my acquired knowledge to aid myself and others from the limited restrictions of society through the use of intention to shape their world. So I bridge the gap between intuition and intelligence. In order to discover your purpose in life, you must know yourself and what makes you happy. One way I encourage my children is through knowledge of self is by constantly reviewing my agenda to their agenda. This is my check and balance way of making sure I'm not teaching them to be me. I like me, and my children know me. They know I went to public school. They know I excelled academically and even took AP courses. They know I was on the dean's list in college. Heck, they even know I was placed on academic probation once. All right.
Hello.
Hello. All right, so I'm interviewing you today on your perspective of homeschool versus public school because you actually had a chance to experience both. So you have been homeschooling since kindergarten, and it wasn't until what grade that you decided you wanted to try public school?
Third.
No,
Second.
second grade, yes. So I have my perspective on public school, and my feelings are so strong that I decided that I wanted to homeschool my children. However, I did not want you to have to live your life through the perspective of me, through my own perspective only. I wanted you to have your perspective on the world as well. So I did give you the opportunity to pick 1 year of elementary school, 1 year of middle school, and 1 year of high school, if that's what you wanted, to experience what it's like in the public school setting so that you can get your curiosity out the way. Because I know sometimes you read books, saw movies that were about school, and you were asking me questions like, is this really what school is like? And I was starting to realize that you weren't aware of what was real and what wasn't when it came to the portrayal of public school, because all you had was my perspective, and my perspective was that basically the more educated you are, that's the more indoctrinated you are to think outside of yourself and get validation and truths from outside of you, and never know how to turn that inward to see the truth that you have within. So to protect you from that and to preserve your individuality, I chose to homeschool you. However, that's all based on my perspective. So it was important for me to allow you to enjoy your life and have the perspective you want out of life. So if that's what you want to do,
You got to choose a year to do it.
One way to preserve your child's individuality is to include some of the items or some of the things that public school does have that aren't too controversial to your setting. For example, you want to provide some of the perks like lockers, desks, books, computers, instruments, some of the resources that they have at the at the public school. You want to have field trips, crazy hair days, sports day, do co-ops with different teachers. Including perks of society school structure is a small and impactful way of allowing your children to be able to integrate or relate to people of society who are not homeschooled. One other thing that I typically do is after a year of homeschooling, I will put my child into a summer day camp program, not because I need daycare services, but because it allows him a chance to socialize with those who are outside of the home and who are different from him. I also put him in different activities, whether it be sports or academic programs.
So how to go to They had a lot of the techie things that we didn't have. I know they had science labs. I know they had computer labs. We had a computer at home, but it's different from being an actual computer lab. Um, they had projectors. We don't have projectors. They had some other resources that we didn't have. Even their music class, because we did do a walkthrough before we agreed to that school for you and for you to go to school. And during the walkthrough, we saw the different instruments that they had in the music classes, right? So although we did have our own instruments, like you have your electric guitar, you have a keyboard, you had drums, percussion instruments, things like that, and what's it called, a recorder. They had those kind of things as well, but they had bigger versions. They had an actual piano. They had different kinds of drums. They had things that were different than ours as far as resources go, right? Right. Right. Okay, but we did still have a lot of those things. So I felt that it was important to bring some of the perks of school into your homeschool so that you didn't feel you were missing out on anything. So when people talked about their lockers or their desks, you knew what that was because you had them at home as well. When people talked about field trips, you knew what that was because you did field trips as well. Now, I'm sure your field trips are kind of different than how they were at homeschool versus public school. Even if you went to the same places, I'm sure that they were different as far as what you can do or what you did while you were there. Correct. What was the differences? The differences were at homeschool I had to stay with the group, but at public school they allowed us to. They had a whole bunch of like teachers over there, and whoever wanted to go to the same exhibits could go there with one teacher, and if they want to run off all the way, let's say to the exhibit that I was talking about, dinosaurs, then the teacher would just follow them. And in homeschool, we have to stick together and like pick which one we got to go to. All right, and we got to go to all the exhibits. There wasn't like one that we didn't go to.
Another way to preserve the individuality of our children is to be organized. When putting them in or taking them out of public school, or even if they want to go to college in the future, you want to be organized. Organization counts for so many reasons. Just because you have a schedule doesn't mean that you're organized. And having no schedule doesn't mean you have to be unorganized. Organization counts for proof of learning. It also counts for if your child is going to go to public school, they may have to find the right placement for your child. For example, mine needed to be skipped up a grade, and having my evidence as to what he learned and what he was taught and what he knew how to do served me well. Not only does it teach your children how to be organized and the importance of organization, it also shows you that you are able to twist and turn to your child's individuality when it comes to education. So if they are ready to take other avenues, you are prepared to help them get there.
To recap your experience in the public school this year. Well, I figured out what it was like to be in public school for the most part because
there's some people that are bullies or tried to pick on you, but you have to punch them in the face, let them know. And there was some times where you're like, that never happened, where they like teach you certain history stuff and like baby it down, but then when they baby it down, like you can't really tell what the truth is because it's like saying 1,001 different things.
Mm-hmm. All right, so you said two good points. For one, you were around other people in society. You weren't just around the people in your home. So sometimes people aren't going to be as nice to you. And you have to know when to stand up for yourself and when to let things just not bug you versus when you actually have to do self-defense, right?
Correct.
And you just said something else. What was it you just said? What was the last thing you just said?
I said that also certain things they tried to baby it down for you to understand, but it completely messed it up where then you wouldn't understand it.
Right. So at homeschool, you were taught the truth about different things in history and different things in general. But at public school, they kind of tell half truths when they're teaching things because they don't know what's appropriate for you to understand because of your age. So it comes off as a lie or where you're just not sure of what the truth is. So yes, the truth is not definite when you're in public school. So you were aware of that already because you had plenty of years in homeschool where you knew the truth, so you knew when they weren't really trying to give you the full truth, right? Okay, and then just to recap some of your experiences to jog your memory, you started off in the second grade when you got there, correct? And then after going to homeschool, after going to the open house for public school, I was noticing before open house that you would come home with homework to do, and it was only taking you 5 minutes to get your homework done. It wasn't much of a challenge, and it was things we have already done. These are things we had done in kindergarten, in our homeschool kindergarten. So I had been emailing your teacher, and she has been assuring me that they're going to pick up the pace soon. It was just a recap from summer, is what she was telling me.
Correct.
Fast forward to the open house. I go to the open house. I immediately grabbed your textbooks out your desk and I flipped through it to see what all you'll be learning for the year. And I realized everything you were going to be learning for the year were things we had already done in kindergarten, let alone first grade. You had surpassed this whole book. Everything they were going to teach you, they were going to teach you times to the 5 minutes, and you knew times to the T, meaning anytime the clock said, you knew how to tell me what it was. They were going to be teaching you how to identify money and get to $1, and you knew how to identify money, get to $1, get past $1. So I'm very excited that you got the opportunity to see what school was like before school's about to change forever. Because this whole e-learning thing that you guys did at the end, I ended up taking you back out of school and just homeschooling you again for the rest of the school year because e-learning was just like you being at homeschool, but only was computer based, and our homeschool isn't computer based. And so I was stuck within the time frame of the school and the work the school wanted you to do, which wasn't really a progression for you. So I say all that to say that part of your experience was you experiencing what it was like to skip a grade. You experienced what it was like to be in two different grades, have two different sets of friends, learn two new teachers, different teaching styles, right?
Correct.
Look up. And so what else did you experience?
I experienced how people can act. I experienced how molded people can be.
What do you mean by that?
Because some of my best friends started getting real mad at me about little things that they never used to just because we're talking about somebody that was rude or something. And then they were never like that. And then I realized the only person that could be doing that to make them be mad at me about that would probably be the person that we were saying that about.
Okay.
So I said, people are molded so easily nowadays.
So you're saying that someone wasn't acting like themselves because somebody else was around?
Correct.
So yes, you do experience that, and that's one of the things when I say we have to protect your individuality is that no matter who you're around, you show up the way that you want to show up. You're not showing up the way
Right.
that this other person wants you to show up just because they are the most popular person or because everybody else is agreeing with
Correct.
them. You know how to show up as yourself no matter what. Okay. And
Correct.
I get a phone call home. And so during this experience of yours, learning what public school is about, you had to experience what it was like to get in trouble um, at public school. The fact that your punishers weren't your parents. Okay.
Correct. That is what shocked me. I was like, aren't my parents supposed to say, yeah, he deserved attention? No, he didn't.
Yeah, it's not
Then
up
when
to
I
the
realized it
parents.
was up to the principal, I was like, are you kidding me? But then I had to realize that I would have been in homeschool if it was up to my parent. And this is school, so then that doesn't mean my parent has responsibility over everything. Certain things you do, certain things you don't.
Has authority over everything. The word's authority. Because I'm still
Correct.
responsible for you even though you're in school. But yeah, I don't have as much authority of you and what happens at public school because it's not my school. It's not my home. It's their stuff, their rules. So when that happens, all I'm doing is answering my phone saying, yes, yes, okay, you're.
To preserve the individuality of your children, you want to give them courage through the practice of handling themselves in society as well. And for my final tip to preserve your child's individuality,
Cool.
we should be teaching our classes
Some
according to
person
the
being at
whole
homeschool
brain
where
teaching style.
You really didn't have to worry about everybody else. You could just focus on yourself. And there wasn't that much background noise like kids trying to be disrespectful to the teachers or nothing like that.
Oh, distractions. Yes. Distractions. And then I think one of the perks from your homeschool was that we got to go at your pace. So with us going at your pace, we were able to skip you up in math if you need to skip up in math. Your reading got to be where you wanted to be. It didn't have to be where everybody else wanted it. And we didn't just focus on one way of teaching you. So I might have taught you a lot of things in the whole brain perspective because I like in school they teach you through subjugated way. They teach you to be more left-brained. Okay, so that means they want you to break things down step by step and logically access a lot of your knowledge. When some knowledge is better to be accessed intuitively with your right brain. So school doesn't really focus on right brain methods, but at homeschool, I focus on whole brain methods. So I know you saw some differences there too when teaching you to do math left to right, just like how we read. That's how I taught you in homeschool. But when you got to public school, you learned which way?
The public school way.
Which was what? Doing math, which way?
Which was left to right.
No, I taught you left to right.
Or right to left.
Yes, right to left. And so
but one of the perks of us doing how we did was they taught me left, you taught me right. So then if they did that, then certain problems would be easier left way and certain problems would be easier right way. That gave me a boost, basically.
Right. So the homeschool, and that's a lot of left-brained things, right? But the whole brain process is what the focus actually is. It's about teaching you how to navigate between both sides of the brain to use your whole brain and access which method is the best response for you, the easiest response for you. Put that game down. Okay, because throughout life, you want to be able to navigate between the best way, the quickest way for you to get your answer, or the most effective way for you to get your answer. And sometimes it is left to right, sometimes it is right to left. So you just have to be able to know how to use your brain in this whole perspective, right? So in school, you learned that there were some methods, like you said, that worked better with the perspective of right brain techniques. And then there were some methods that worked better with left brain techniques. So it's about you being able to switch between the two. Which comes to the point I'm making where homeschool, the reason why I homeschool you is to preserve your individuality. Meaning that when you come into society, you know how to show up as who you are, and you're able to switch between both sides. You're able to use your whole brain to know how to be in either situation, when you're by yourself, when you're with your family, when you're in society. So you don't have to feel like you have to be different people in these settings. You can show up exactly how you are, because showing up and being different people is you losing who you are in your inner self. Showing up and being the same person strengthens that bond within, and that strengthens your bond.
Although I, like most of you, also have the stereotypical melanated black mama authoritative parenting style, we must consciously practice including and respecting the perspective of our homeschoolers to let our children know that who they are matters.